Michael Heidingsfield slept 166 feet from this.
It was then, and is now, I think, still the largest vehicle-borne improvised explosive device attack of the war. We had 48 casualties that day.
Fundamentally, I'm just an old soldier who responds when the bell rings.
And that bell has been ringing most of his life, from his days as a young military police officer to his job as a big city police chief.
If somebody calls on you to execute a mission that's important, you salute smartly and you step forward and you do it. I tell people, for me, it's very simple. It is if I am called to do this, and there's a moral imperative behind this.
The danger cannot be understated. Hundreds of Iraqi police have been murdered in attacks by terrorists.
I think I understand the risk.
So does his family.
My family is anxious and frightened and concerned about my personal safety.
Mike and Ann Heidingsfield have been married 30 years.
But as long as I know that they're by my side, then I'm okay and they'll be okay.
Mike Heidingsfield is an independent voice between county and city police departments. As the director of the Crime Commission, he studies crime trends in Memphis-Shelby County, and gangs occupy plenty of his time.
The gang problem is significant. Some people estimate the number of gang members in the thousands. Some people have said 10,000. But we're just now, I think, beginning to exercise some legitimate control through a variety of measures. It would be absolutely the wrong time.
There's all sorts of technology out there.
His Baghdad hotel bombed 3 times. His convoy hit by a car bomb. After 14 months of trying to rebuild an Iraqi police force and 25 years of law enforcement experience, Michael Heidingsfield says he knows what it's like to take a life.
It's probably the most traumatic event that a law enforcement officer will ever encounter.
Friday, police shot and killed Caesar Cooper at a seatbelt checkpoint in Ripley. They say he tried to run them over with a car.
That imminent threat of deadly force to be used against you or a third party, you have the right to use deadly force. And you do it to stop the threat. The mythology of shooting to kill, shooting to wound, shooting guns out of people's hands, shooting out tires, that's all mythology. It's all fiction. It's only on television. We don't shoot out tires. For one thing, handguns don't have the physical ability to do that. Afterwards, there's a lot of introspection. There's a great deal of sadness. You've taken somebody's life. The entertainment industry and movies do the police a great disservice because they show this kind of thing as a casual encounter with no after effects, and that's simply not true.
Crime Commission Director Michael Heidingsfield was the driving force behind law enforcement accreditation, a move that would catapult the Memphis Police Department and Shelby County Sheriff's Office to elite status.
It should give you a more competent, a more professional, and a more responsible police department. People have to be situationally aware and never give up the sense of vigilance.
Mike Heidingsfield heads up the Memphis-Shelby County Crime Commission.
And I always tell people, if they feel uncomfortable or unsettled or uncertain about a situation, they ought to follow their intuition because there's probably something wrong. Typically, though, we dismiss that and then we walk right into a vulnerable situation.
But I think what people have to understand, men and women alike, is that carjackers come to the crime prepared to be violent. They are most likely armed. This is certainly one of the crimes in which we know the offenders are almost consistently armed with firearms, and they're prepared to use violence. So, despite what our instincts may be, to resist them is really a recipe for disaster.
I think it's important for people to understand that carjackings are a very deadly encounter, and they ought to do everything they can to minimize the likelihood that they're going to be hurt. Carjacking has a certain thrill to it. You come away with a prize that you can show to other people, which demonstrates to them how savvy and successful you are on the street. All of that's at play. Part of it's ego, frankly.
This is the most volatile I've seen in the city here.
That's Michael Heidingsfield, and he's the crime commissioner for Memphis and Shelby County. And he is agreeing with the policies of Sheriff Mark Luttrell these days, disagreeing with Police Director Larry Godwin when it comes to merging police services to get more people on the streets.
I think it is past the time to consider merging certain services. You know, we have an expression in the military called force multiplier. And when you consolidate activities that are otherwise duplicated, you're going to be much more effective.
The whole business of analyzing crime is to ultimately get to the point where you can predict or forecast where it's going to occur and move your resources there. So rather than being behind the trend, you want to get ahead of the trend.